Tri-State Freethinkers Podcast Lecture Series from May 4th, 2016, Rebel Livin, with speaker Kimberly Roberts.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, I am from Canada. I have been living in Toronto for 9 years, but I'm originally a Hoosier. I'm originally from Park County, Indiana, so I'm very, very excited to be here today. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, well, we're going to talk a little bit about death first. Bronnie Ware was an Australian palliative care nurse who took it upon herself to do some research about what the top 5 regrets of the dying were. And since I am from Indiana, I'm going to do it a little bit like our David Letterman does. So we're going to do it in the top 5 style. So may I have a little bit of a drum roll, please? Thank you. The number 5 regret of the dying is that they had wished that they had allowed themselves to be happier. That they'd allowed themselves to be happier. Number 4, that they had stayed in touch with friends and family. It's the last time you talked to mom. Number 3, they wish they'd had the courage to express their feelings. And number 2, this may be a shocker for many of you workaholics, they regretted working so hard. But the number 1 overwhelming regret by 90% was that they had lived a life that everybody else had expected of them rather than for themselves. And they were left haunted with the decisions that had brought them in their life to where they were. Haunted. I mean, wow. But what if we decided we weren't going to live that way anymore? What if we decided today was the day that we're going to start living differently, that we're going to start living for ourselves? What a difference our lives would make. What a difference our lives in our communities, as Jim was talking about, would make. In our world, in our families, and our peers, if we started living more authentically. Well, this is something that I fervently believe, what I'm passionately behind, and it's why I've created the revolution and a mission I am on across this country and in Canada and Europe this fall. And it's one I'm passionately inviting you on as well. But who am I to lead this charge? Well, I am, like I said, just a farmer's daughter from Indiana. I am the daughter of Steve and Donna Williams, 2 people who are travelers around the world, champions of justice. Well, not exactly. Their passports don't have many stamps. Their lives wouldn't make them much of the Travel and Leisure Channel. But what they lacked in passport stamps, they made up for more than that in a simple formula of Cheerios, National Geographics, and 3 a.m. wake-up calls for meteor showers. And what do I mean by that? Well, I am the product of 2 dreamers who, despite their economic circumstances, where they were at, despite being taught by everybody else to live a certain way, they decided to teach their children and themselves differently. They found ways to be able to make it happen. They didn't stop teaching their kids to do things different. So breakfast, yes, every morning were for me, with my dad, having Cheerios, reading National Geographics, and going over all the places in the world that I could go see and that I should go see, and the people that I would meet, the places that I would experience, the foods I would taste. How many of you remember the movie Indiana Jones? Okay, awesome. So one of my favorite ones, and it's my visual mantra, is the one where he is having to go save his dad. And Indy comes to, well, Indy is my nickname, by the way, but that's a whole nother story. Indy is at this cliff's edge, and he's standing there, and he's hearing Dad scream because he's been shot by the Nazis. And he's at this cliff, and he's got to get to the other side, but he sees no way to get across there. And he's got to get across there. And he realizes that if he takes a leap of faith and steps off, that everything will be okay. And sure enough, it was. There, unbeknownst to him and anybody being able to see it, was a footbridge that took him across, and he was able to save Dad. Well, that's my visual mantra. And that's why jumping off cliffs. And it served me well. This is something I've done consistently, and some highlights for you. I have driven a CASCAR. How many of you are NASCAR fans? Any NASCAR fans? Wow. Wow, I did not expect that. So for those of you, let me educate you. NASCAR is the car that goes around and everybody says they just turn left. They look a lot like yours out in the parking lot. So CASCAR is the Canadian version of that. I've also driven an Indy Lights car, which is just one step down from the Indy 500s car. I have qualified for the Junior Olympics team, the sharpshooting team, before I was 16. I have, without any theater background whatsoever except for high school, written, produced, acted, and taken it across the country, my own show, and been featured as a Judy Garland doppelganger in Vanity Fair. Why? Because I wanted kick-ass stories when I was 90. So yes, jumping off cliffs has served me well. All I wanted was the adventure of it all. I wanted badass stories when I was 90. Now, being a farm kid from Indiana, how many of you are from the farm? Let me see if I got hands this time. Only a few, okay. So being a farm kid like I was from Indiana, I had lots of opportunities to jump off cliffs. I mean, going from one 6-foot-tall, 1,000-pound bale of hay to another probably wasn't all that different of a big adventure, a big cliff, as it was for many of you taking maybe a bus for the first time by yourself as a kid. Those little adventures that we had as kids, they mean so very much. But why did we stop doing those? Why did we stop jumping into mud puddles? Why did we stop jumping off cliffs of adventure? Well, if, like for me, like the rest of us, we were taught by schools and society that we have the perfect formula for happily ever after, right? We go to school, we get a great job, great career, we get married, we have the 2.5 kids, and ta-da, you'll have the happily ever after, right? Yet the statistics tell us differently. 80% of us are unhappy in our work. 50% of us graduate and go off to work in jobs that we didn't study for. And I don't have to tell you that 50% of most marriages fail. So I wonder why we get to a certain point in our lives and we wonder, where's this happily ever after I was promised? And many of you, though, might remember your first big hairy cliff jump. How many of you remember your first bike ride? There we go, that's a bit better. Now, how many of you remember how free that was and how that sense of accomplishment, I mean, just riding your bike by yourself. But how many of you remember falling off the bike the first time? Well, unless you actually had a catastrophic accident, most of us don't remember that. How many of you have had children before? Given birth? How many of you, when you think of ladies, when you think about having children, think of the pain of childbirth first before anything else? Now, the real question is, how many of you ladies have had more than one child? My point is that you're going to have scraped knees. You're going to have pain with your big cliff jumps. But you get back on and you do them. No matter what, there are going to be those scraped knees. And just like those things of jumping off the cliff, of riding the bike for the first time, or having a child, those are freaking scary obstacles you overcome. But you did it, you were hell-bent, and you did it. And it was that experience that you can lean into. No obstacle, no fear, you made it happen. You figured it out. So why not give yourself permission to do more of that today? Why not give yourself permission to jump off cliffs of different types? New jobs, new experiences, new opportunities to help out in your community. What a difference it would make in the lives of those we care about. So once you start jumping off cliffs, don't freaking stop. Not only does it become addictive, jumping off cliffs and having these adventures and finding these new challenges, but once you find the outcomes of jumping off those cliffs, of those experiences, those adventures, those are going to be equally addictive. And we've all heard that big risks come big rewards. It just takes getting on that proverbial bike and riding it again. and incorporating random cliff jumping into your everyday lives. With your work, with your people that you work with, you're going to see new possibilities in your life. So I challenge you to take on new adventures. Big ones, small ones, opportunities like Jim is talking about that your organization is doing. Jump into those. And so to get you started, I've brought around Colette, if you would please. I brought around some applied adventures for each of you to take with you. And they're little random adventures that you can start stretching out your day a little bit more. There's no literal jumping off cliffs. There's no riding a bike or having to have a child, but there are some things you can do in the everyday. So I'll pass those around. So this is your mission, should you choose to accept it, or to do some of these adventures, and start with them. Because I want to reignite your kid love of that adventure, that kid love of excitement and fun. And that way, when you see the big opportunities, the big experiences, the big adventures that come, the big things that scare you, that give you that pit in the stomach, you'll be able to lean into these little bitty experiences and be able to take them on. But let's say that there are some damn obstacles that get in your way. Let's say, fast forward, you join the revolution, and you've become addicted to jumping off cliffs and having lots of fun and trying new experiences. And then you get the big, hairy, audacious idea. That's freaking fantabulous. But now what do you do with it? It's ginormous, it's scary, it's huge, there's lots of obstacles that go with it. What do you do? And suddenly, the yeah buts come into play. You know these. The yeah, but I shouldn't do it. Yeah, but I can't do it. Yeah, but everybody's going to make fun of me. Yeah, but they say I can't do it. Yeah, but I don't have the money. Yeah, but I don't have the time. And the internal ones are even worse than the external ones. So what do you do when you're faced with those yeah, buts, but you're hell-bent on jumping off the cliff? Well, how exactly do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So that's right. You do the same thing with your big, hairy, audacious goal. So let's say you're facing this big cliff, and it's a year-round trip around the world, and yet your spouse isn't interested in doing that. You don't know how you're going to have the money to do it. You're not sure about how you're going to have the time, and all the yeah buts start coming at you. Well, you break it down. So you take small bites. You incorporate. Maybe you start shopping for the foods that you might have along your year-round trip. Maybe you take your spouse, your partner, and you take them to start cooking things with you, or go to a restaurant that you might try the foods at. You take up a language online for free and start learning those things. My point is, you engage in that big, hairy goal every single day, that adventure. Engage in it consistently. That's how you do it, just like the elephant. You're breaking it down in one bite at a time. That's why serial cliff jumping, like I showed you with the adventures there, is so very important. It not only allows new opportunities to present themselves, but it gives us that bulldog attitude that once we get one that we really want, we never freaking let it go. Never let it go. So once you catch one, grab it and go. Serial cliff jumping, big ones, small ones, create magical changes in our lives and the lives of the people we influence, the lives of our community members, and our world. So serial cliff jumping is what led me to investigate what Judy Garland activities were going on when I was in Toronto. I'd lived there for just a year, and because I wanted, like I said, a badass story when I was 90, I knew that I'd always look like Judy Garland for my whole childhood. And so I Googled one time to find out if there was anything going on in Toronto for Judy Garland. There's a big community of fans there. And sure enough, there was one audition for one day only for a Judy Garland play. I thought, oh, well, that'd make a fabulous story. Farm girl from Indiana comes to Toronto and tries out one audition. Awesome, this will be great, big city audition. And so I go, without any theater background again, passing all these theater stars. You could see them, they're preening, they're practicing their lines. I'm passing all of them. I go in, I do my audition. Awesome, I got my story. I leave, I get a phone call, I got the damn thing. Oh shit, now what? And so I kept going with it though. And I kept those, that one night only led into, the show went on for 2 years. Excuse me. Wow, see, I told you there were storms coming. Went on for 2 years and landed me, not only did I get into the Vanity Fair as one of the world's noted Judy Garland doppelgangers, but I actually met somebody where I got to try on the pair of the ruby slippers from the show. And the scary part was they actually fit. But that all happened for me because of one little jump I did. But what about for you? What is going to happen in your world from taking one little jump just for the badass story you want to have? What's going to happen for you? What difference is going to make for you? Now, in the time that I've given this talk, there have been 321 people that have died. And if you remember, 90% of them went to the deathbed regretting that they had lived for everybody else instead of figuring out how to live for themselves. Francis Chan, a great philosopher, once said that our greatest fear should not be in failure, but rather it should be succeeding in things in life that don't really matter. Now, I don't know how much time I have, and I'm pretty sure most of you don't know how much time you have. But don't you think, Jim says I got 10. But don't you think your tomorrow deserves your best freaking today? Seriously. What are you waiting for? Seriously, what are you waiting for? The perfect time is not going to happen. Start making it happen. Find a way to start living those dreams. So I want to do a little bit of an exercise with you. I'd like for you to all close your eyes, please. And I'd like for you to picture yourself surrounded by grandchildren and family, and they are having the times of their lives listening to you tell stories about all the adventures that you've had in your life. They're loving it. They're just hanging on every word that you have. Now I want you to open your eyes and think about what stories you might have them if it happened today. And I'm telling you, the only thing that's different between those two realities is having a plan of attack to be able to start walking through and taking on new adventures. And so I invite you, for those of you who have decided that, you know what, that does make a lot of sense to me, but I'm not sure I can do it on my own. Well, that's what I do with the Rebel Livin'. And I help people just like that, just like you, who want to find a way to move from one point to the next and get hell-bent on start living their lives, forgetting all the freaking obstacles and getting it done.
Yes, I understand that my whole life is just a blink of an eye. The history of the earth is with each moment that goes by. But this moment that I'm with you, it feels like time has stood still. It feels somehow like it matters, and that it always will. Thank you so much.